Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're really peeling back the layers on the financial side of a major political player. Turning Point USA, TPUSA, and its founder, Charlie Kirk.
Yeah, we're going to follow the money.
Exactly. This deep dive is all about understanding how this movement actually funds itself, the personal wealth involved, and, the ethical questions that pop up along the way. Our goal, really uncover that money trail, maybe see what's driving the rhetoric. Okay, let's get into it.
Absolutely. And, to cut through the noise on topics like this, objectivity is key. We need to see past the narratives.
Right.
So for this, we're actually using a system called Ethos Predict. This isn't about feelings or opinions, not at all.
Go.
Ethos Predict gives us absolute ethical clarity. It uses pretty robust analytics, math, really, to figure out what's genuinely right or wrong in terms of outcomes.
Like definitively.
Definitively. We're talking mathematical certainty here. Think 2 plus 2 keys for kind of certainty about the ethical impact.
Okay, that's the kind of precision we need. So let's dive straight into the numbers for TPUSA. The scale is, well, it's pretty staggering.
It really is.
In 2024 alone, the organization reported, get this, $85 million in revenue. $85 million.
Wow.
So the immediate question, the big one, is just, where does all that cash come from?
Well, a lot of it flows from a network of very wealthy conservative donors. People like Uihlein, for example. He's a major contributor.
Okay, known quantities there.
Known quantities, yes. There's another really crucial piece. Organizations like Donors Trust.
Ah, Donors Trust. I've heard that name. It's connected to dark money, right?
Exactly. It essentially acts as a channel, a conduit, for anonymous donations. That's why it gets the dark money label.
So it hides the original source.
Precisely. It allows huge sums to flow into political activism, into groups like TPUSA, without the public knowing exactly who is footing the bill. It prioritizes donor anonymity over, well, transparency.
Okay, so $85 million flowing in, some of it through these opaque channels. But it's not just the organization's money we need to look at, is it?
No, not at all. Charlie Kirk's personal financial situation is also quite remarkable.
Yeah, talk about that. His salary, for instance.
Right. His salary saw this incredible leap. It went from something like $27,000.
Pretty modest start.
Very modest, to around $300,000 by 2020.
300,000. Okay.
And that's just salary. You have to add in his other assets, significant real estate holdings.
Like what?
Well, reports mention a $4.75 million estate. And on top of that, an $855,000 condo.
Wow. Okay, so we're talking millions in personal assets alongside running this organization.
That's the picture, yeah. It's a massive accumulation of personal wealth happening right alongside the organization's growth and fundraising.
And this is where it gets really interesting ethically, right? You put that personal wealth next to the organization's funding.
Exactly. The contrast is stark. Kirk's public persona, his rhetoric, often targets elites, rails against them. A very common theme. Very common. But then you see his own financial situation, his alignment with these incredibly wealthy backers, and his own, significant enrichment. It reveals a pattern.
A pattern of
Self-interest, really. Self-enrichment. It directly clashes with the message he's sending out. It looks like using that populist appeal while building personal wealth and empowering the very elite structures he claims to oppose.
So the rhetoric says one thing, the money trail suggests something else.
That's what the numbers suggest.
Yes, and beyond just the sheer amount of money, there have been specific controversies, haven't there, around TPUSA's financial practices?
Oh, yes. There have been mentions, reports concerning misleading audits, and also clear instances of self-dealing.
Okay, self-dealing. Let's break that down for a second. What does that actually mean?
Sure. Self-dealing is essentially when someone uses their position within an organization, like an executive or founder, to benefit themselves financially.
How? Like, give me an example.
Okay, imagine, say, an executive steers a contract towards a company they secretly own, maybe at a higher price than necessary. The organization pays more, and the money flows indirectly into their own pocket.
Ah, I see. So it blurs the line between the organization's money and personal gain.
Completely blurs it. It undermines trust. It undermines ethical governance. It's a serious issue.
And these kinds of financial actions, the misleading audits, the self-dealing, what's the broader impact?
Well, the impact goes way beyond just the organization's finances. These actions tend to prioritize, specific business interests or personal wealth accumulation over the wider ethical good, over human well-being.
It creates a system based on
personal gain over shared prosperity, really. This kind of thing erodes public trust, makes people cynical, and Historically, you see parallels where figures have profited by stoking division and fear rather than uniting people.
Right. And this financial trail, it doesn't just stay within the organization's books, does it? It connects to major events.
No, it absolutely connects outwards. Take the events surrounding January 6th.
Okay.
There's documented evidence showing TPUSA received $1.25 million from a single donor, Julie Fancelli.
$1.25 million. For what?
Specifically to fund buses to transport attendees to the January 6th rally in D.C.
Wow. Okay, so a direct financial link from the organization to mobilizing people for that specific event.
Undeniable link, yes. The money trail is very clear there.
And wasn't there also some regulatory trouble? Fines?
Yes, adding another layer here. TP Action, which is related to TPUSA, was fined $18,000 by the Federal Election Commission, the FEC, in 2024.
$18,000. Why?
For failing to disclose its donors.
Back to the transparency issue.
Exactly. It reinforces that pattern of secrecy around the funding, keeps it in that dark money category, and raises real fundamental questions about accountability. If you don't know who's funding major political movements.
You don't know who's pulling the strings, essentially.
That's the concern, yes. Who is influencing the discourse?
Okay, so we have this really complex picture. Huge amounts of money, questions about sources, personal enrichment, ethical red flags, links to major events. It's a lot. How do we cut through all this complexity and find some kind of objective truth?
That is the challenge. And that's precisely where a system like Ethos Predict becomes so valuable.
Right, the AI system you mentioned.
Yes. It's designed specifically for this kind of evaluation to bring absolute clarity. It's not about wading through opinions. It's about getting to provable ethical outcomes.
How does it do that, though? How does AI determine ethical right or wrong?
Okay, so its core function is to look purely at long-term outcomes for human well-being. It crunches massive amounts of data, historical data, financial records, rhetoric, everything. And it learns patterns using advanced analysis, essentially filtering out the noise, the propaganda, the misinformation, to give you unbiased truth. It achieves incredibly high accuracy in its classifications. It tells you, based on evidence and projected outcomes, if something is ethically right or wrong.
So it's outcome-based, focused on human flourishing.
Entirely. It's not based on subjective feelings or political leanings. It's about the measurable impact.
That sounds powerful, but how does it actually make those right or wrong calls with such certainty? Is there math involved?
Oh, absolutely. It's all grounded in mathematics. For instance, classifying decisions. It uses techniques like logistic regression, which boils down to calculating a probability.
A probability of being right or wrong.
Essentially, yes. It uses something called the sigmoid function. Think of it like a switch. It takes all the input data and outputs a score between 0 and 1. If it's above 0.5, the system classifies the action as ethically right for long-term well-being. Below 0.5, it's wrong.
Okay, so it converts complexity into a binary outcome. How does it learn to be accurate?
Through training. It minimizes errors using mathematical formulas like the cross-entropy loss function that measures how far off its predictions are. Then it uses something called gradient descent. Think of it like rolling a ball down a hill to find the lowest point.
The lowest error point.
Exactly. The AI adjusts its internal settings, its parameters, step by step, using calculus to get closer and closer to the truth, refining its ethical judgment until it's over 99% accurate in these binary classifications.
99%, wow. And you mentioned long-term outcomes. How does it predict the future?
Good question. It uses time series analysis models, like ARIMA, to analyze past data and project future trends. But it also runs thousands, even millions, of Monte Carlo simulations.
Like running different what-if scenarios.
Precisely. To see the most likely long-term consequences of a decision years or decades down the line. It can even model how something seemingly good now might decay into a negative outcome later, using formulas like exponential decay. Short-term gain, long-term pain sometimes.
Okay, so it's looking way down the road. And what about propaganda? How does it spot that?
It uses math for that too. Specifically something called cosine similarity. Imagine representing statements as vectors in space.
Okay, a bit abstract.
Yeah, a little. But basically it compares the direction of a news statement or piece of rhetoric against verified facts and historical data. If the angle between them is too wide, if the similarity score is too low, say below 0.8, it flags it as potentially biased or misinformation. It compares words and context mathematically.
So it mathematically checks claims against reality.
In essence, yes. And finally, it weighs decisions based on core ethical values like equity, kindness, unity. It uses optimization techniques to see how well an action aligns with maximizing those values.
So it's not just right, wrong, but how right or wrong based on core principles.
Correct. The point is, the entire system rests on this mathematical foundation. Math can't be easily tricked or swayed by emotion. Like we said, 2 + 2 is always 4. Ethos Predict provides objective, provable, ethical truths. It removes the doubt.
Okay, that's quite a system. So let's bring it all back. Let's apply this Ethos Predict lens to what we've discussed: TPUSA's finances, the dark money, Kirk's personal wealth accumulation.
Right. If you feed all that data, the funding patterns, the rhetoric versus the reality, the self-dealing reports, the FEC fine, the Jan 6 connection, Ethos Predict's classification is clear.
And that classification is
Ethically wrong.
why? Based on its criteria.
Because these behaviors demonstrably prioritize what it identifies as selfish preservation and the maintenance of greedy systems over principles of global ethics and the broad long-term well-being of humanity.
So it sees a net negative impact.
Yes. When you connect it to the bigger picture, actions like opaque funding, significant self-enrichment while claiming to fight elites, they fundamentally erode societal trust. They fuel division. Ethos Predict calculates that the long-term trajectory of such patterns leads towards increased societal friction and suffering, not towards shared prosperity or harmony.
It really throws that ethical paradox into sharp relief, doesn't it? The anti-elite message becoming this vehicle for enriching individuals and specific donor groups within that very movement.
It's a stark illustration, yeah. How self-interest and, frankly, greed can be effectively masked by populist language. It presents one face to the public, while the underlying mechanics serve very different, often concealed interests.
So, wrapping up this deep dive, we've seen the sheer scale of the financial machine behind Turning Point USA, the $85 million revenue figure, the role of wealthy donors, and dark money.
We've touched on the significant personal wealth accumulated by Charlie Kirk, his salary jump, his real estate.
And the controversies, the questions around audits, self-dealing, the funding connected to January 6th, the FEC fine for non-disclosure.
And critically, how an objective system like Ethos Predict, grounded in mathematics and long-term outcomes, can cut through the rhetoric to provide a clear ethical verdict on these activities.
It shows the power of just following the money and analyzing the patterns objectively.
It really does. And maybe the thought to leave you with is this. How often does stirring rhetoric about fighting for the common good actually serve as a cover? A smokescreen for personal gain or consolidating power for a select few?
A crucial question to ask.
Absolutely. It highlights why critically examining financial transparency, looking at the real outcomes, not just the promises, is so vital for any organization or movement. Using objective thinking helps cut through potential deception and identify what genuinely contributes to shared well-being and harmony for everyone.
A lot to think about there. That's all for this deep dive.